like Patron Warrior versus mid-range Paladin is really favored. But at the same time, mid-range Paladin versus Control Warrior is favored in the favor of mid-range Paladin in the exact opposite way.
Well, Farvet did also have double Brawl and double Deathlord, which is not too bad against the Paladins.
Yeah, that's true, but then you get equality'd, and you're really sad. Interesting that Lostov kept equality in his opening hand. I think a lot of it does have to do with how good the rest of his hand is with Zombie Chow and the shielded mini bot, so he'll put on a lot of pressure.
He has the already game just set, completely set, good to go.
Yeah.
Also, one way for you to win, like one way you lose. Generally, this matchup is just filled with, you just generally go beat each other out until mid-range Paladin run out of cards, and patrons just draw a bunch of cards, or just use patrons to just fulfill the board, and then that's usually the game. It's the same way the rogue wins against mid-range paladins. However, whoa, Lostov has actually Avenging Wrath and Owl. That's a little different. That was a little expected in my opinion.
Yeah, we're seeing some personality here from Lostov. I like it. I like it.
Anyways, going back to the points, one way for you to win is early on the patron warriors just gonna expand on patrons. And expecting, I'm just gonna draw with the battle rage next turn. There's no way Patron, the mid-range paladin's gonna clear this board, and then you just go with the equality consecrator ability. I guess in this case, Avenging Wrath maybe. Then Patron warrior just might not have enough draw cards to just follow up, and you might just take an easy win from that.
Yeah, in this matchup though, I feel like you have to use Avenging Wrath in a combination with equality.
Yeah.
Because Avenging Wrath, I think if warriors could play Avenging Wraths onto themselves, they would do that sometimes. They want to be able to do 8 random damage to their own minions and their hero even.
Everyone get in here 8 times. Fill the board. Now the Ostaka here can just play a Cloud of Pin and just run into the Zombie Chow. That'll be interesting. And draw cards here as well. I don't really see that amazing play otherwise.
You can go super aggro with our Frothing Berserker, but
wow.
It's like kind of your win condition in this matchup.
Yeah, possibly.
This is one of the matchups where you have multiple win conditions. Whereas typically, against Druid, your win condition is the patrons. Against Handlock, your win condition is typically the Frothing Berserkers. And in the same extent, your win condition against all control decks, like Priest and Control Warrior, are your Frothing Berserkers. But in this matchup, you can go for a patron. You can go for a bunch of patrons, and it's not that reliable. It's pretty reliable, but the only way for your opponent to clear is with equality consecrate typically, which Lostov has a good chance of having. On the other hand, the Frothing Berserkers are also a really good win condition, since the Paladins typically run a lot of weak creatures that you can get a good combo off of. So probably one of the only matchups where you do have all those win conditions in your deck.
Now,
and they're all viable.
Just use an Owl here and just kill it, or coin out the Shredder and just put the pressure on, because the pressure in this match is really, really important. But at the same time, denying the card draw is also important. So he's just, thinking between, what out of 2 pretty good choices can I pick?
Yeah, first world problems. I have too many good choices.
Yep. So he ends up just denying the draw. But then he has a 2/1/1s left over, which is something you actually don't want to see in this matchup, I believe.
Yeah, really good point, Masan, because I think if you read any of these mid-range Paladin guides, if someone wrote a mid-range Paladin guide, for instance, and they talk about the versus patron matchup, 2 of the key points are you have to deny card draw and you have to put on pressure. Because in the long game, the patron warrior will just win outright. There's no way to win.
There's no way to win.
You just have too many dead cards in your deck in the late game after turn 8, when the opponent can get a huge Frothing, a huge patron board or a huge Frothing Berserker.
And I guess Ostaka here is happy to trade a 2/2/1s with a 2/4. Which makes sense. The Frothing Berserker can be win condition, but not necessary, especially in this match. So you just need to survive early on and just don't take too much damage.
Yeah. And now there's going to be some pressure put on Ostaka.
Oof.
See, I like how Lostov saved the Shredder now that I see his hand, because it's very possible that Lostov just doesn't have a turn 5 play otherwise.
No.
No weapons from Ostaka. Lostov's going to be very happy about that.
I will actually consider going for a knife juggler coin out Shredder here, just to put more pressure in really, really fast. It doesn't look like Ostaka had. If Ostaka had any weapon, then perhaps not the best choice, but you can put tons of pressure now. So all minions have 3 more attacks, so we're not really worried about
Yeah, definitely a good
expanding board with the patrons.
Good insight here. And I think Lostov is going to listen to you.
Mm-hmm. And you also have Equality Consecrate just in case something weird happens.
Let's look at the Shredder positioning. Okay.
Ooh, beautiful. Shred at the middle that you can attack with. Always.
You see some players who go for like the absolute worst Shredder positioning, which is you put the knife juggler in the middle, right?
Oh man, yes. In that case, you only buff the knife juggler. It looks so beautiful though if you do that.
Now, if
Ostaka's hand is really, really just awkward. Like you really don't want to expand on patrons without. It's not going to draw a card. It's just going to get cleared up easily.
And we have to remember that Lostov actually has burst in this deck with Avenging Wrath.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty hilarious. It's kind of like a Pyroblast to face for 6.
It's a little unexpected. It's like 8 damage randomly.
Yeah. Here, if Ostaka did have a weapon, we have to ask him, like, is he going to attack the right Shredder? He'll probably clear off the knife juggler first of all, but if that weren't a choice, then he actually should kill the leftmost Shredder.
Oh yeah, definitely. So he's gonna go for Patron and Whirlwind with the Inner Rage, so he's gonna expand on board. But then this will be just cleaned up so easily.
Yeah, Lostov needed those 2 exact cards, Equality and Consecrate. And not only that, the drawback of Equality isn't really huge at all, especially since there's no Whirlwind effect in Ostaka's hand anymore.
Even without it, Lostov can just board clear, although it will cost his entire board, with the exception of 2/2 coming out of Death Rattle. However, Equality Consecrate, great turn for Lostov, and Ostaka is just going to take a lot of damage now. 13 damage coming in from 27, so he's going to be down to 14. And he has either Trisiver or Avenging Wrath just ready to go.
Yeah.
And Ostaka doesn't really have anything. I guess you have to just hope that you draw into Whirlwind or Ghoul with the Battle Rage. You really don't want to be just going for Death Bite when your opponent have 11 damage.
Oh, Ostaka is like
14 health.
Ostaka is the happiest I've ever seen someone who just got Equality Consecrated. He's like, oh, I'm pretty happy about that. I'm glad that happened to me. So he
I will
needs.
take the day for a bit. All right.
He needs a shield block now, basically.
No. Yeah. Shield block or Ghoul actually would be the best, I think.
Oh, that's right. Cool.
That's
One more
what he's
chance.
looking for. One more chance to play Ghoul, and he gets a shield block, which is not the worst thing, but we know that we know what's in Lostov's hand. He has Avenging Wrath to add 6 damage. Ooh, Inner Rage. He will definitely use it on Knife Juggler.
Yeah, Inner Rage lets him survive. Oh, even more burst.
If he didn't have more damage, he has more now.
The problem is Ostaka's going to run into the same problem yet again. Where he's,
now, would you go for just Avenging Wrath play here, which I think I personally would, and then you can, although Trisiver Champion is tempting, but it's turn 8 soon. You might be worried about something else just being on board. This is a great opportunity to just have all the Avenging Wrath damage to the face.
Yeah, that's true. At the same time, though, if you choose over now, you can get 8 damage over the course of 2 turns.
Oh yeah.
Which means that. Okay. Which means that basically you have more damage overall, but this is just more burst. So Ostaka at this point, he needs an unstable Ghoul, and he needs to.
She can't draw.
Yeah.
He can go for Death Bite and Fire Works to try to do the AoE damage. Which he will.
Unfortunately, it's not going to be enough.
No, it won't be. Even if he armors up after that and gets a Doomsayer out of that, it will not be enough. Oh no!
Oh,
If a wow, if you couldn't ask for a worse
yeah.
position, well, it didn't really matter because those Lostov also just have a Tristler champion into consecrated, which is 8 damage total on board. Ostaka only has 3.
Yeah, so much burst damage. He
Yep.
basically lost off with Avenging Wrath on turn 7. He maximized his burst damage over the next 2 turns, even though in the long term, he would have lost that on some damage. So there you have it. Pretty, I would say, convincing win from Lostov.
Very convincing win.
If you didn't know about that matchup, then you would think that, oh, I guess Paladin is favored in that matchup, which is completely false.
No. He just drew right cards on right time, and Ostaka just didn't have anything to deal with the board. He just needed a Ghoul or a Wormid, and he would have been actually okay, but he didn't get that.
So one player, again, this is Druid Mirror, battle of who has the Wild Growth versus who has the Innervate, and it's going to be a Wild Growth versus a classic Wild Growth versus Innervate battle.
Wow.
I think a lot of
also can go for coin out Wild Growth and save every single mana.
Yeah.
He won't even waste one to start with.
There is a situation where the Innervate is better than the Wild Growth. When you get a Shredder out and you hit your opponent's face for around 3 times, then the opponent won't ever be able to come back if he doesn't have like a Wrath, for instance. But
yeah, if you have Force Nature Savage or Ancient Lord to go along with it.
I don't think this is going to be one of those games though, because Lostov's early game is pretty amazing.
Yep. So does Ostaka. It's pretty good. You can just innervate out the Shredder. And Lostov doesn't look like he has answer to Shredder for first couple of turns.
Lostov is saying, "Hey, I want to be player 1 now."
And Ostaka is saying, "Oh, I'm just gonna innervate out the Shredder now." Or Wild Growth actually is decent. So yep, both players starting with a Wild Growth. If you can ask for better hand than Wild Growth, it is Wild Growth.
And we have ourselves a game. So this is going to be a battle between Ancient Lore. Both these players' hands are amazing. Like Shade, double Shade is pretty amazing early on.
Is awesome.
But Ostaka's hand just might be faster with double Innervate.
Yeah, the Lostov just had 1 Wild Growth, and Ostaka has double Innervate and Wild Growth. And whenever you have that kind of hand, the problem is that you might not have a draw cards, which Ostaka is already covered. Turn 5 Ancient Lore is just a great. And now he's just looking for Force Nature Savage combo, I believe, already. Yeah. Pretty soon.
Oh, Sylvanas even. Sylvanas is really amazing. It's a card that's been cut in a lot of Druid lists because it's been deemed as basically too slow. It just gets silenced a lot. I found though that it does really well against certain decks. Like it does well against the best deck. The best deck it's good for is when you're playing against Dragon Priest because they don't run any silences. They develop huge boards and they really can't play around the Sylvanas as much.
Now, also note that Ostaka is going to be playing Sylvanas into the Lostov's board that's going to have 5/5 and 4/4 Shredder. Wait, the Chase on top of possibly Lothab. So you have a 2/5/5 minions going into Sylvanas, which is the worst possible thing you want to ask for.
Yeah, it'll basically force Lostov to do a lot of trading if he doesn't have a keeper.
Which it doesn't at the moment. And here comes the Sylvanas. I'll even kill the... Yeah, I'll just kill off the Lothab as well. And then you're just going against a 5/5 and 4/4. And Lostov, unless, like you said, unless he has a silence, he's going to be forced to just trade with both.
I like just going for face, actually, because basically the Lothab will be forced to trade with something because he can't afford to have the Sylvanas steal one of his Shades.
That might be true, but then you also have to worry about the damage possibly coming in from Lostov. That's 14 damage on the board already, right? And double Savage Roar will be 8/8. So that is actually exactly if he has double Savage Roar.
I don't think you can play around double Savage Roar though. But no, then again, look at that. Keeper is drawn.
A keeper.
So both players getting everything they want here. The thing is, even though Lostov has a keeper, I think Ostaka still wins out by playing the Sylvanas because having a Sylvanas, like Lostov is pretty much going to play keeper and probably Darnassus Aspirant on this turn.
Oh yeah.
And I would rather have a 5/5 on board compared to a 2/4 and a 2/3, basically.
And Lostov also is forced to trade at least a little bit. Like you don't want to just die to Savage or single Zaptor and kill you. You don't want to be in that position, so you have to trade somewhat extent. And Ostaka is just going for face, whereas Lostov is just trying to survive and defend himself. While his Shredders are not quite big enough, I would say.
Very defensive play by Lostov.
Yeah.
So he's really cashing in on that shade value. It's almost as if those shades had built-in innervates in them. Right.
Now Ostaka is kind of running out of the juice. And I don't see a great play from Ostaka at the moment, unfortunately. Well, he does have an innervate, so if he has, you can act as if you have a combo and force your opponent to trade mostly. But that's about it. Like the double keeper doesn't really do too much. I guess you might be forced to use the innervate and double keeper. But for what? To kill off the 2/4? Not really. That's something that you want to do. I guess you can just go for a kill 2/4 in this case with the 4/3, which is just great trade, and then just go for keeper and hero power kill to Darnassus Aspirant.
You can even consider innervating out the Darnassus Aspirant as of your own. To develop more of a board. And
Oh yeah, so that you're threatening lethal even if you just have Savjor.
That's right, that's right. Lostov's hand and board, I would say, is slightly more effective, but I think it's all going to come down to what Ostaka top decks in the next few turns.
Lostov has a pretty good swipe turn, I guess. Or would you just rather go for lower and hope that Ostaka doesn't have anything? So we're at 17 health. You're likely just going to go for, well, if you kill off the 2/4 instead of 4/1, like the average minion to come out of the Shredder is around 2/3, right? So there isn't too much difference between killing Keeper and Shredder. So you'd be killing Shredder if you're in that set.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 6 damage on board plus a Savjor is another 6. So that's 12 damage from Savjor alone.
Yeah, it's just playing Ancient of Lore feels so risky. Not only
risky.
Not only are you in danger of dying to Savage Roar, but the issue is if he doesn't have Savage Roar, then he just trades with his 4/1 Shredder into your Ancient of Lore, and that's a really good trade for him.
Ooh, wow.
That's...
If Ostaka had a Force Nature Savjor or anything close to some sort of those spells, Mana Addict is a great card. It makes the 2 mana 5 attack minion.
So here's the question: do you use Walled Growth as like a Blessing of Might, even?
Oh man, I don't think you would want to do that. So what else do you play? Like, I guess you can Wild Growth and Azure Drake.
Yeah.
But then, wouldn't you want to see what you draw with the Azure Drake anyways?
Yes, I agree. It's really hilarious, actually, that you might just Wild Growth on turn 8, which is usually the worst turn to Wild Growth, and oh man, never mind. That seems a little better.
Yep, and just deal 3 damage, and you have 5 damage on board.
Deal 4 damage, show that shade who's boss.
Yes! Kill that shade!
A little scary.
And your Lostov will be down to 14 health, which is something you want your opponent to be at as a Druid.
Alright, we're gonna go with it here. Now, Lostov on the back foot yet again. He really doesn't want to like be making these defensive plays all the time. Although
you have to go for a winning play, just have to gamble and go for lower at some point. What are you gonna go with a swipe? Swipe hero power doesn't even clear Mana Addict. So Ancient Lore seems to be only play unless you want to go for Force of Nature and a hero power, which doesn't even clear the most of... Well, it clears the board, but then it still put you down to 14 health. So, oh man, he goes for the play.
I think
Wow,
this
so
is
you just lost your win condition, mostly.
well. This is actually I think it's somewhat fair in the
Hmm.
sense that basically Lostov is seeing that Ostaka he hasn't played a lot of his like situational cards in his hand. He's hoping that
No.
Ostaka has this exact hand basically. And wow, this is really that hurts a lot. This is possibly one of the worst hands Ostaka could possibly have.
Yep,
So I
Wild
think
Growth on turn 9 has a big game hunter and keeper. Big game hunter is something you don't want to play this late into game because you know the majority of the Druid do run big Doctor Boom.
yeah. So Lostov's game plan at this point is to just play the Ancient of Lore, to develop a board to draw into a lot of taunts so he can survive a Force of Nature or Savage Roar combo, and to eventually grind Ostaka out really slowly. Although not slow enough that Ostaka can actually take back the board somewhat and combo off Lostov.
You just need the keeper on board, in my opinion. Like, what are at this point? What are you keeping your keeper for?
I've got the beast in my sights.
Ooh, big game hunter and keeper together, or just pass your turn with the big game hunter? Big game hunter. Is it threatening enough, though? Is the question. The big game hunter.
That's a good question.
Because the big game hunter by itself, it doesn't really kill anything, even if you're drawing to Force of Nature. I guess you'll be drawing into another card with the Wild Growth, but
Yeah,
then Force of Nature doesn't do much, Savage Roar doesn't do much. So having Big Game Hunter just doesn't seem that threatening.
I think it's more about just like the recursive extra 4 damage. Maybe it'll force Lostov to do more inefficient plays.
I think the Keeper just forces as much reaction out of him, though. If he's gonna go for like swipe, he's gonna swipe the Keeper. Anyways, he does draw into swipe, and he just has a Wrath. Yeah, I guess he can just swipe the Shredder and then just run into the Lore. That will mostly work clear.
Well,
he can also Keeper if he wants to, but before that, he should go for Wild Growth first, no?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, okay, I think he should Wild Growth, and then depending on what he draws, he needs to change up his game plan.
Yeah.
Like, if he drew a minion here, he might have decided to trade off with Swipe and Keeper the Grove, for instance. But I think because he's drawn the Force of Nature, now he can consider just going for face.
Oh, yeah. I would have Wild Growth drawn first, I believe. As well. Ooh. You can swipe and just go face. And Lostov left with an 8 health of... That's so low. Lostov can also draw... Oh, double swipe. That's interesting play. Swipe, swipe, Wild Growth. Which will save him.
Well, no, because he would need to hero power in order to survive.
Oh, you're correct. You're correct. You're correct. Because of the Keeper, it's 6 damage instead. And... Sure. Yeah, man, Lostov is just in really, really tough position. Trading 4-2 with a 4-2, which is fine because we're going to have Death Roll cards, and that is... Usually that actually is the best card, I'd say.
Yeah, and
Patient Assassin.
Yeah, if your opponent doesn't have Swipe, it's probably the best drop you could get. But if he doesn't have Swipe, it's a pretty big if.
Now, would you go for a Shredder and the Hero Power, not even go for... Oh, wow. So he does play around the 8 damage lethal.
Oh, Shade, though.
Oh, man. Shade is really, really tough for Lostov to deal with.
Yeah, any other minion would have just gotten wrecked by the Patient Assassin, but Shade is just perfect here. And yet again, Lostov, he is facing lethal. He has 2 draws to draw into a taunt. And actually, would a taunt even do it?
Ancient of... Ooh, actually.
A taunt wouldn't actually do it. So
yeah, it wouldn't.
I think no matter... He needs Ancient of Lore here in order to heal himself, but no.
That is not the case here. So Ostaka will take the game number 2. And even up the series. Once again, Ostaka just crawling back from behind.
Yeah, I wouldn't really say he was really behind. I think it was more that Lostov failed to climb back from behind.
Well, I was talking about the series total. But yes, Lostov was just in tough spot from the start, almost. Like, Ostaka started with the Wild Growth, Innervate, and Lord. you can't really ask for better hand in mirror matchup because all you want to do is continuously just playing minions, and overwhelm your opponent by turn 9, and then you just go for Force Nature Savager. That is the dream hand for Druid, and Ostaka almost had that, with the exception of Force Nature Savager combo, but Lostov did not know that. He just kept playing around Force Nature Savager until he was just making 2 inefficient trades, and that just cost him the good game. At the point, Ostaka drew just Force of Nature. That alone was enough to finish off the Lostov.
Next match starting right away, we're going to have Lostov with Demon Handlock, or just some kind of Handlock. We haven't really seen it yet. Meanwhile, Ostaka. Good old Patron once again. Good old Patron.
Oof. Against Handlock with a Hellfire. I wonder if Lostov is brought the Demon Handlock or just standard Handlock.
That's right, that's right.
I think in Europe, at least, the standard Handlock is slightly more common, but we see it as soon as I say that there's a demon going into Lostov's hand. Basically, there was a revolution lately regarding Handlock, and most players have considered Demon Handlock slightly better. One of the reasons is that it has a slightly better Druid matchup. You just have more 4-drops and more power, more potential power in the early game. Basically, the Demon Handlock, it cuts the Sludge Belcher as a more defensive card for more power early on, and just generally, the
Sludge Belchers aren't necessarily even that great against aggro, and aggro also in general it's not that amazing in tournaments, at least right now. The tournament meta and the ladder meta are slightly different. In tournaments, everyone is running Patron, and Patron is a really good anti-aggro deck.
With the exception of a Sacred Paladin, I would say it's pretty popular in tournament as well. Sims, at least the client was bringing Paladin. Well, not just Sacred Paladin, but Paladin in general.
Yeah,
is often seen.
That's true. That's true. Secret Paladin, I would say, is maybe the 4th or 5th most common deck. Obviously, Druid, Patron, and Handlock are most common, and then I think Hunter and Paladin kind of share somewhere in that range. Hunter and Paladin are pretty common.
Yep. Now, Lostov should be only playing 1 Hellfire, and if so, would you really want to be willing to use a Hellfire just to clear this extra draws, prevent him from drawing? It looks like he's just going to go for Dark Bomb on A Cloud of Pain.
That's right.
To deny the extra draws.
Yeah, you really want a few more cards. Also, if you only run around Hellfire, you need to use it against Patrons, basically.
Yeah. Or Shadow Flame if he has it or draws into it. Looking at Ostaka's hand, he has a lot of draw cards, actually. He has a Shield Block, he has a Slam, but he probably doesn't want to use it. If he was not at 30 health, I might consider going for a Slam and Battle Rage on turn 4, but not to think about it, like the Shield Block on turn 4 is kind of awkward. It stops you from going Battle Rage for a long time. Depends on what's brought out by Lostov, I suppose. If Lostov goes for Mountain Giant and you don't really have anything to kill it, you might have to use your weapon, which you still don't have. Now, usually general consensus is that you want to play Twilight Drake on early turns and then play Mountain Giants turn 5 and 6, especially against the Ghoul, since the likelihood of your opponent having Execute against Warlock is pretty high. But your hand is so full, and you might want to just go for Mountain Giant and a 2-drop, which is Ancient Watcher.
Yeah, you want to fit in that Ancient Watcher because sometime later in the game, you're going to want to taunt it up.
Oh, yeah. And next turn, you just have a really great turn 6 with Imperial Darson as well. So Slam and Execute looks like it's going to be a choice. But is he going to... Ooh, another Slam, actually. That's not too bad.
Yeah, Slam.
But he goes for Armor Smith.
Slam really
He does
amazing.
not want to armor up more further. But having more things on board is okay. Now, as a Lostov, what does you play here? Turn 6. I think just Emperor Darson is a great play. But otherwise, you have other great 4-drop options. But you don't have anything to follow up with without just life tapping. I think you should be about, like, turn 5 and 6, you should be a little worried about just playing big minions when your opponent has a ghoul on board, right?
Mm-hmm. I think if Lostov had any other options with one of his 4-drops, like if he had to Dark Bomb something, for instance, then 4-drop might be something you consider. But Emperor on 6 on a relatively like innocuous board is always what you want.
Wow. Slam and Deathbite can threaten your opponent by a lot. We have a double Warming effect on turn 7.
Wow, even Emperor Thor's
Wow. So Ostaka just needs a little bit of time and you can just go for
exactly.
Emperor Darson into a super uber combo for about 20 to 30 damage. And Lostov needs to taunt up pretty soon now.
I think one weakness of the Demon Handlock lists are that it doesn't really have any room for tech cards. For instance, a lot of regular Handlocks, they either run 1 or 2 oozes. I know Trump, at least, he was a fan of double ooze back when Patron was especially strong. But in the Demon Handlock, you just don't have space for that. So when your opponent sets up a Death Bite, you're basically at their mercy.
Yep. Well, at the worst possible scenario, you usually just have a Void Color and you can draw into... Well, and then you can taunt it up if you have Organist. Then you're invincible, so you know you're not going to die in likelihood of your opponent having multiple execute is kind of low. So that seems to be a play here. Void Color into... Or would you be pretty greedy and go for Mountain Giant, which might be... Alright, that's not the case. Oh man, can you ask for a better combo?
Yeah, can you ask for a better Emperor, basically?
Yeah, I don't think you can. He has an entire hand. You can just play the entire hand in a single turn if you play Emperor here. And I don't think you're tempted too much to just draw here. So the full combo now costs 6, 7, 8, 9 mana, which is something you have with a coin.
Is it time to start counting?
Oh, I will definitely consider Lothap here. It's you just saw the Emperor, and if you can't, well, I guess you have to consider it. Man, it's just a tough call by Lostov because you can't go for Hellfire and clear the board without using Void Color.
There's actually not a good way to clear this board at all. You would have to Hellfire, which you don't want to do, or tap for an answer.
So many possibilities.
Letting the opponent get 2 Emperor activations is... Oh man, it's not something you want to do.
No. At least you can lessen the pain by going Lothap. You don't really have good...
Would you want to Lothap this turn, though, or perhaps a different turn?
Yes, you definitely want to Lothap here, I think. Because otherwise, you know your opponent, so you can't clear Emperor. The worst thing you want to do is your opponent add 10 cards. And this will actually prevent that. Clear the board and goes for a Battle Rage, and then that also gets lessened, and you're almost guaranteed dying next turn.
So Battle Rage for 6 here.
Yep. Question here is, how much damage does Ostaka have? And is he willing to risk the Mal'Ganis coming out? So Patron and Frothing Berserker seems to be play here. That is a lot of damage. A single Warming effect is just going to be 10 damage on extra.
Oh, man.
I guess 11 actually.
The question is, okay, first of all, is this lethal with Mal'Ganis coming out, and is this lethal without Mal'Ganis coming out?
I do not think it's lethal with Mal'Ganis, but it sure will be, I think, without Mal'Ganis. Because the Patron is gonna just run into the Void Color. So he doesn't have taunt anymore, and unless Mal'Ganis comes out, which it didn't, and that unfortunately will be the game.
Really unfortunate for Lostov. The game could have swung completely around if Mal'Ganis didn't.
Yeah.
If Mal'Ganis came out, like if it came out, he would have to run it into Mal'Ganis, and then from then on, Ostaka's win condition is pretty much gone.
Yeah, unless he has to draw the cards, which Lostov is definitely not going to let him.
So
So tough matchups. Lostov, well, Ostaka is only left with a Demon Handlock, and Lostov should have seen it.
Shall be mine.
Yeah, and I
Which
expect
deck is gonna bring is a Druid.
both
With
these
Lostov.
lists to be almost identical. Pretty much everyone is running the same lists right now with the recent addition of Lotheb. In the most common list, last week, for instance, Lotheb wasn't an auto include, but right now we've seen 3 players, Firebat, Lostov, and Ostaka today. They all brought the same kind of variation of the Demon Handlock, and all 3 included Lotheb.
Yeah, Lothav is a pretty good card, or even Harrison Jones is good to just have as your attack cards at any time.
Yeah, so with the addition of Lotheb, I think players are running 1 Owl, 1 Hellfire, 1 Shadow Flame, and 1 Lotheb. So just a mix of everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, look at that hand. Ostaka is so happy to get that hand. See him smiling all the time again.
He is a smiley. And Twilight Drake starting hand on as going second is something you definitely want.
Yeah. I've actually seen Life Coach before. He's kept Molten Giant in a lot of weird matchups. Like, obviously you keep Molten Giant against Hunter, for instance. But he's actually kept Molten Giant before as a Druid player. He doesn't do it.
Druid.
Yeah, he doesn't do it anymore. But I think back when maybe he was like starting out, he really valued this card. Maybe he thought it was possibly overvalued it even. Casual 6 mana from Lostov.
I don't even know if you want to keep it against Hunters these days because you rather just draw into your 2 drops and 3 drops and have the early gain advantage.
Well, even though Lostov has such a good opening, I think Ostaka will be able to match his opening.
Yep. Unless Lostov has a Silence coming up here. And he does have 6 mana, so if he has a Keeper, which he didn't...
What do you think about this play, choosing to go for the Twilight Drake over the Void Caller? It seems like usually players tell you to play the Void Caller first because you'd rather get that silence than the Twilight Drake. So I'm wondering why Ostaka decided to play the Twilight Drake here, especially since he has 2 very strong demons in his hand.
Yeah, that's very interesting since if Lostov had the Keeper, then you can just silence and hero power kill it, so that sprint isn't even gonna die.
Yeah. Not only that, but you have the potential to get Jiraxxus on the field. And Jiraxxus as a 3/15 is incredibly effective against Druid.
I guess he just didn't want Mal'Ganis, and if that gets a big game hunter, the game could have been swung in multiple ways. But here, Ostaka doesn't really have a good answer to Ancient of War. He just have to go for Void Color, I suppose, and just pass the turn without attacking, maybe. He knows that, well, Lostov did not have a silence, otherwise he'd sure would have used it instead of protecting Aspirant. So, what are the good plays here? Like, I just don't see Ostaka having it. You can't go Hellfire and attack, that just kills your own Twilight Drake. You can go for Void Walk. Void Color, I guess, is the only play. You don't want to be life tapping when your opponent has a lot of big minions, rather.
This is such a strange scenario. I've actually never seen this before.
No.
Where you get an Ancient of War so early on against Handlock. Handlock typically has huge minions like Mountain Giants, but he's going for like the slightly like the series of minions that trades really well against mid-range creatures, but really struggles against that Ancient of War.
A Druid Drake can see what he draws. Maybe he will draw into Wrath, or even Root is going to be pretty good. He goes, wow, he draws into Big Game Hunter, which will be really good in the next couple turns. So he does kill Twilight Drake.
Interesting. Probably afraid of a Shadow Flame there. But
Possibly.
Here's the thing: if he just went for face here, the Ancient of War might have protected his minions long enough so that just Savage Roar could be a win.
Possibly. In general rules of them, though, like you're expecting this game to go on for a little longer. You're expecting this game to go on for turn 8, 9, so you just want to wait until you just don't want to give your opponent having any chance having Molten Giant come out, and you can just combo it out. Especially when you have a Savage, you just want to have that Force Nature Savage combo and ready to go on turn 9.
Yeah.
after playing Lothab around turn 8.
So I think typically you would rather play the Lothab here, or just play a Lothab on turn 5 instead of a Mountain Giant as a 5 mana card. Ooh, because it just has less potential for a huge swing. But Ostaka, he really wanted to contest that 5/3 Ancient of War. And also, he had the potential to get Melganis out. So now there's actually 2 big game hunters that Lostov has to deal with.
Targets.
Yep.
And he doesn't really have a good answer without using Savage or, well, efficient way to clear this. I guess you can just go for Keeper, I suppose, as well. You can just big game hunter, the Mountain Giant, and then Keeper, and run your Ancient of War into Melganis.
Yeah, I wouldn't be too sad about that since you've already seen a Twilight Drake, and you've dealt with that Twilight Drake fairly effectively.
Yep.
You know, there's no such things as like a Sylvanas in this deck either.
And I guess that's going to be a play. And what does Ostaka have in response to this though? This board is getting scary and scary. So Savjor 8, 10, 18. Savjor alone actually is enough to kill. Wait, no, not really. Not yet, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way
Almost.
that he'll be able to use Savage Roar next turn, though. The play looks to be either Lothab or tap Watcher Sunfury Protector or something.
Lothab would be generally good play on turn 8. So that your opponent can board clear with any of the removals. And turn 9, you might be just drawing for the win. Goes for Lothab, and whoa! Now Lostov has a good choices here. 2 good choices, in my opinion. Would you rather use a hero power or not? Or shade?
I'd rather hero power here. Basically, if you don't shade here, or rather, if you don't hero power, then you have to trade the big game hunter and the keeper. And the shade, honestly, it'll be a 3/3 next turn. It'll be even equivalent here.
It'll be 1 extra damage.
It'll be 1 extra damage, but then you're also
sacrificing your keeper, and your opponent might have a taunt. Like, well, I guess you're not really worried about Belcher at this point.
A taunt or Hellfire Dark Bomb might be good.
Oh, Hellfire! No, you're not worried about that.
Yeah, you're not worried
you
about
just played Lothab, and you're looking at the lethal coming up pretty soon. And since your opponent is at 17 health, yeah, you just there's Lostov left Ostaka at 17 health. So if Ostaka goes for Molten Giant, he's dead.
So no real options here. Let's say best case scenario is, I guess you have to tap here. I'm thinking, unless you want to play the anti-heal botch, which doesn't really seem right to me when you have double Molten Giant in your hand.
You like to win this game, you probably need to leverage those Molten Giants.
But there's another counter argument about that you have a Hellfire and you have, like, your opponent is willing to lower the life down to 17. That means likely he has the lethal. He likely has lethal, right? If you don't heal up or taunt up. So you decide to heal up. Especially if you life tap, you're lowering your life even more beyond what Lostov left Ostaka at. So yeah, just when you're low enough that just Submerge Savage will kill you. Probably not the best choice.
This play,
not.
He just got a Druid of the Claw top deck, and that's gonna be it.
That will be it. And Lostov evens out the series once again. Wow, we have another series going to 2-2.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that makes a lot of sense. Since both players are running kind of similar lineups, Druid, Handlock, or Demon Handlock, and then like a third deck. As we mentioned before, all these decks, they kind of cover each other's weaknesses, and also that means that they're kind of good against each other, and it's kind of like one deck is good against the second deck is good against the third deck, and the third deck is good against the first deck. So it's kind of like a ring around the rosy of like counters. And as you go further down the series, it just means that you have fewer choices and your opponent has more choices. So your opponent will always be able to queue up their best matchups in. So that's why we see a lot of series kind of going to a 3-2 victory in swing of one player or the other.
Now, we know that Ostaka has one big game hunter. What do we know about Lostov's deck? Does he run? Would he be running one big game hunter? Would he be trying to check in like?
I'm willing to bet that both these decks are card for card
Identical.
identical. Exactly. We have a true mirror match, and in the mirror match, typically it's the player who's player one. Has
Usually has huge advantage.
Yeah, you generally
In this matchup in particular, because if Lostov does not have an ancient watcher, which he does in this case, so your Twilight Drake or your Void Color is going to be really awkward, because if you coin that 4-drop out, you really don't have a good answer unless you have another 4-drop to play. And if you coin out the Twilight Drake, your Twilight Drake says 4/8. Yeah. So unless you have a big game hunter, which Lostov does have in this case, so he's willing to actually bait out the Ostaka's Mountain Giant.
Yeah. So typically when you do this kind of play, like you're really scared of a Mountain Giant, but you typically only do it if you either have a second Twilight Drake to follow that up with, or the BGH already in your hand.
I don't even know if you want to follow that up with a second Twilight Drake if you don't have a big game hunter in your hand, because the Mountain Giant is gonna 2-for-1 against your Twilight Drake, and that's not something you want to see.
Yeah, that's true. I completely agree with that as well.
So Twilight Drake versus Twilight Drake difference is that Lostov has an owl, and Ostaka doesn't. Well, Ostaka has an owl, but he didn't use it on Twilight Drake.
Yeah, so it's actually going to be
Lostov is like gonna get advantage from starting off as player 2 using the coin really effectively here.
This actually is not looking so good for Ostaka, because he's gonna go for a Mountain Giant play here, right? After live tapping, and that dies to become hunter. And Ostaka doesn't really have cards like Hellfire to clean the board up after that, so he has to go for Shadow Flame play, or do you want to go for Dark Bomb on Big Game Hunter? The Lostov is just getting more and more value out of these cards. So Twilight Drake 2-for-1s basically, and Big Game Hunter kills the Mountain Giant on the starting hand. Like at this point, it doesn't really matter what Ostaka plays. It will guarantee to die, and you can't board clear either.
Yeah, not only that, but Lostov has an advantage going into turn 6, a board advantage that is, so he'll be able to get a very clean Emperor Thorazine off.
Do you really want to use an Owl and Shadow Flame on this board? I guess you could go Lothab, but then you know that it's just going to be traded into with the 4-2 and 2-1 at worst, at best case scenario for you. So I guess he will go for a clean board here. An Owl and Shadow Flame. Wow.
That feels so bad.
And Lostov has just a great turn 6 here with Emperor Thorazine.
Yeah.
Now, Ostaka does have turn 7 play, which is Dr. Boom, but he doesn't have answer to kill off the Emperor Thorazine. And if Emperor Thorazine gets a value here for 2 turns, then that's 18 extra mana Lostov has compared to Ostaka. He's going to be free to just life tap anytime to use those Molten Giants a little bit earlier as well. Or I guess the Lostov can just go for attacking into Dr. Boom and go for Hellfire and see what he gets out. It depends on what he gets out. Like he can accelerate his Molten Giant in multiple ways now.
In the last mirror match we saw between Ostaka and Firebat, we saw that Ostaka, he had the potential to get 2 turns of Emperor out, but he didn't play it that greedily. He realized 1 turn is enough, and I can just go for the less greedy play.
Enough, especially against the big board your opponent has. Now, Lostov now can play Molten Giant starting next turn.
Yeah.
Whereas Ostaka is going to have to wait another 3 to 4 turns to play it.
Yeah, he's almost at the perfect health here. Handlock doesn't really have any bursts, so you're really you feel really safe about being at this life total. Another key point is that Jiraxxus was reduced in mana cost, so now Lostov can just Jiraxxus and Infernal.
And Impair. Oh yeah, in Infernal. Sorry, not Impair.
Yeah, and with that kind of play, like typically the weakness of Jiraxxus is that it's a little slow, so you need an overwhelming board advantage to play him. Now Lostov only needs a slight board advantage to play him because that Infernal contests with everything pretty well.
I will start with an Owl and Mortal Coil, see what he draws. And then depends on what he draws, he can go for other Molten Giant. Because even if you play Molten Giant, unless your opponent has a Mortal Coil to kill an Owl, it's going to be traded with a Big Game Hunter. at worst possible scenario. Well, I guess that would be the worst, actually. And Twilight Drake is good. Molten Giant is good. Everything looking pretty well for Lostov. And Life Tap and Twilight Drake is the choice here. To have a maximum mana for that. Or we should go for Void Color. Nah, the Twilight Drake is just too good, considering that Ostaka already used now.
Also, if you go for the Void Color, you have a chance of getting Jiraxis from it. And
On
I think,
board.
Yeah, on
you
board.
might not want to do that.
Yeah, I think you just really want to save Jiraxis. Just as, like, turn yourself into Jiraxis, basically. And right now, it's like, I think what we're seeing right now is a very slow death animation from Ostaka. It almost feels like Lostov has got this game locked up because of all the advantages he's accumulated over the past few turns.
Yes. And Ostaka doesn't really have anything that he wants to play. He can't. Well, he could have. Yeah, he couldn't really play anything besides the Lothab, I guess. Could be one. Now, what does Lostov actually has to kill this Magnus with? He has a 6 damage on board, so he could just go for actually Argus here.
Yeah, Argus doesn't seem very bad. You can, again, I'm not really sure you want to play the Void Colors, but I think it's about time for the Molten Giants to come out, because after
or maybe Zraxis.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, actually. Like I think.
Well, no, actually, you don't want to do that because of the Molten Giant. But
yeah,
it's interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think in this scenario, a 3-mana Molten Giant is just too good. But I think typically a mistake that a lot of players make is that they hold on to the Jiraxis way too long.
Yep.
As the Handlock player, like sometimes, like whenever you get a huge board, you can just go Jiraxis and summon an Infernal, and a 6/6 oftentimes is better than an 8/8.
Ooh, so Hellfire and Big Game Hunter seems to be play here. And it's good that Lostov played the Dr. Boom here instead of a Molten Giant. It will bait out the Big Game Hunter. You don't want to lose the Molten Giant to Big Game Hunter. If anything, you want to lose the Dr. Boom is a much better target to lose to Big Game Hunter.
Mm-hmm. Especially one that's really damaged.
Oh yeah. Now, both of the players have to worry about Shadow Flame plays. Well, I guess not for Lostov now. But Ostaka always have to think about it.
I've got the beast in my sight.
And because of that, I don't think he will play the second Molten Giant unless he really, really wants to go all in. But then it doesn't really do too much.
Yeah, I was saying a bit about how Lostov seems to be in a huge lead, but now
Now, a little bit different because the Dr. Boom actually was the worst. Because of Ostaka already have double Molten Giant, the Dr. Boom and the Boom damage accumulated, making Ostaka's Molten Giant cost 0 mana.
Yeah.
It actually made those Lostov's play really, really awkward now.
I really
He doesn't have a Shadow Flame, he doesn't have AoE, he doesn't have way to clear this.
Yeah, I really would have
Heal
liked to
up.
see the Molten Giant on the last turn from Lostov. It wouldn't summon the boom bots, but not only that, I feel like he should get it out as soon as possible so that he can go Jiraxis. So playing Dr. Boom on last turn, even though, I mean, the joke is if it's green, you play it, but I think it was kind of a misstep last turn.
Yeah, I talked about how Big Game, you don't want to lose the Molten Giant to Big Game Hunter, but then in this matchup, more important thing is whether you get the Molten Giant for free or not can be really, really important, more so than just losing a single Molten Giant to Big Game Hunter.
like when you're forced to play Melganis. Okay, he's gonna play this instead.
My shield for Argus.
Like this
Even
doesn't
if you
feel good.
play
though.
that, actually, that you're still in lethal range. Wow. So 3 triple taunts coming out. And can Ostaka do something about this board?
You can try drawing
To
for
Shadow Flame.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be the winning play. They will win you pretty much regardless, right?
If you draw Shadow Flame, you just will. Well, unless Melganis comes out, actually.
Yeah, yeah. It has 1/4 chance, though. Well, I guess in that case, you wanna see what comes out first, right?
Mhm.
So you will Shadow Flame and kill Magnus
So many possibilities.
at the same time, and that will be the game.
Well, I don't know about that because if you
That is the game if he actually gets it. Ostaka is going for a Lothab play to secure himself another turn. Okay, so Ostaka is going for really defensive play. Double Molten Giant and Shadow Flame is somewhat prevented. But then, what does Ostaka... Well, let's see what Lostov has first to clean this up. Can he even clean this up, I guess, is a good question. He can definitely kill one Molten Giant, but what does he have after? He can try to... I guess he can try to play Magnus, and then he can run into Void Color to get the Doomguard and kill
Lothab.
Kill Lothab.
Yeah, I think you do have to go for some kind of a risky play here. Hopefully the right demon will come out.
Hmm.
If not,
Yep, that is a play.
he just doesn't really have any good options besides that.
No.
And it almost has to be Doomguard. Jiraxxus. You can see some pain from Lostov. He definitely wants to play Jiraxxus as a like the hero.
And depends on that is a game actually. You can go for Argus and run into Magnus with the 6/6 and Mortal Coil, and then go for Doomguard plus 9/9 damage. That is a 14 damage coming out to 11 health Warlock, and Ostaka takes the game.
Yeah, pretty amazing game right there. Again, I felt like Lostov, he was kind of in control that entire game, but Ostaka, I think it was Ostaka capitalizing on Lostov's mistake, but just Lostov